Welcome to Wellness Radio with Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher as your host. Her show discusses topics of health, wellness, and spirituality, and is about discovering your place in this great universe, from your cells to the cosmos. Along with her guest, in casual conversation, she strives to ask the difficult questions that may be holding you back from a vibrant life, and shares new ideas that may inspire you to make a change in your life that you only can see in your dreams. And now, here is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Wellness Radio. This is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher, and it's a pleasure to have you with us here this evening. Tonight, we are going to dance in the ethers. We are going to be in our higher self. We are in a higher frequency. We are going to talk about our experiences as the soul, the spirit, the God realization, the white light, the unconditional love that we truly are. Yes, we are talking from life outside the balloon, from outside the human conundrum, from the stories that we've been told, from the old paradigm, perhaps from that lower vibration or dimension that we seem to have playing out in front of us. Many are still attached to, or sometimes we do hit the wall and we end up there and we say, "Oh, we got to shake this off. This isn't good. This isn't what I want, but maybe I'm here for a reason." What we're talking about today is how to become the enlightened soul and spirit that we've always truly known inside we are, how to join again and be able to traverse all of the gifts we have, how to open up our abilities, but furthermore, how to become what we are here to become, to see that we are eternal souls and spirits, and to let go of the human story because it's only letters in the alphabet. There's 27 letters. Keep throwing them up however you want. That's all the stories. We're just going to step above. We are going to dance in the ethers. Today, my guest is Mark Olsen. His book is The Layman's Guide to Experiences in God Realization. And Mark, thank you so much for joining us today to dance in the ethers, because we really want to be able to share with others, I think, our stories of this great experience you and I have been having, yes?
Yes, and thank you for inviting me, Dr. Jeanette, and I could not agree with you more. I suspect it's our mission to share what we have learned with others.
Absolutely, Mark. You know, I think sometimes people are afraid to speak up or speak out about what life is all about and about for them, you know, these several decades. And we look at our lifetime and we say, whoa, I didn't even know that there was something so much more. And what you and I are sharing today is all of the things that we have experienced in this lifetime and saying, come on over, did you see this? Did you notice that? And we're showing them the light, perhaps?
Yes, and there are ways to connect with that light. I think it is so important that one does daily devotions, and hopefully more than one a day. They do not have to be long, but long enough to introduce stillness into your devotion so that you can receive guidance from that power we call the Christ or the Logos or Brahman or whatever name you choose to give it. Without those daily devotions, we're not nearly as close to God as we could be.
You know what you've written in your book, again, the book is The Layman's Guide to Experiences in God Realization. Right in the very beginning it says, a spiritual experience does more teaching in seconds than reading and studying may teach in many lifetimes. And that's what we'll be doing today. As we share our experiences, we are reflecting on their appearance, how it might appear to you, how it may reflect in your life, and how it has changed or shifted over time. You know, Mark, I think sometimes people are saying, but show me the evidence, show me the validation, show me the, as we talk in medicine, evidence-based medicine, you know. I want to see how it's repeatable over decades and times and how many gurus and followers it has, and then I'll join in. Do you think sometimes We have to take a step back and say, this is a singular journey within the web of the cosmos that you and I are talking about?
I think you're exactly right, and this is what the secret teachings teach, that these revelations will be personal. You have to go inside to get direct revelations about God, the Holy Spirit, and yourself. If you read books and you go to outside sources, you never find out because you do not really see these experiences with your own eyes. And I think that is necessary. Direct revelation.
Yeah, I think sometimes we say, what are we trying to find? And so many times I would say to people, just close your eyes, breathe, and that's it. Everything else that you receive is what we call here in the South, lanyap. It's a gift of life. It's something extra. It's something given to you as a gift. So if you think about that, sometimes humans say, well, people have left us too early, or I didn't get it. I must have made a mistake. I'm in shame and I'm guilt and wrong and penance and all this other stuff that religion and education tries to pony up on us so that we get stuck in the muck, so to speak. We get stuck in a swamp, we can't get out. So people are having a hard time, potentially, trying to be able to say, is there a different way? Is there another opening in my being? Is this life a possibility that it can be different? What you and I are proposing is that we can definitely shift our life and see that it is different and operate from a different standpost. Perhaps?
This is so true. And I think if one can connect with their inner self, with soul or that power that is inside us, it will do this for us. Many people cut themselves off from this inner power by not paying any attention to it or doing devotions or study. And if they did that, they would quickly see that their suffering had merely been learning, and they were clearing debts, and they're in a more wonderful place because of it.
Yeah, I think it's about changing our vocabulary. I have this little thing that I post on social media, randomly, and it's the word of the day that we kick to the curb, so to speak, And one time
and we never use it.
Right, like the word suffering. It's sort of like, I don't kind of get that, Suffering, it can go. It's unnecessary in this other world in which I exist, or you do too. Or perhaps, the idea sometimes of a hard death or a painful existence or, that was a terrible, terrible thing. So I think the idea is that we're putting these antidotes on it to be able to say how we feel, but yet we still haven't gotten to the core. So when something happens to us, people are saying, well, you have full choice. Let's talk about that for a second, Mark. People will say, but you have choice. You can choose it to be good or bad or right or wrong or left or right. And I'll go, you're still stuck in that human paradigm because you're still making a judgment based on something within the human realm. So like when something shows up to you, let's say an illness or a car wreck or a birth of a child or death or whatever it is, no matter what it is, I use the word awesome. Awesome. Because death will teach us something. Illness will teach us something else. They will all take us on different trajectories to be able to have an experience. The only reason we're here is to have experiences. But yet we still...
This is so true.
Yeah, but I think people have got us roped into it has to be a good experience or else we're a bad person, and then we're never going to find God. Let's talk about that 360 circle.
That's so true. They're missing the big picture. First of all, they have created their life through their imagination, their feelings, their thoughts, and their actions. So everything happening to them, from what they think is suffering to what they think is happy, they have brought to themselves without exception. If they could look at things more positively, more positive things would happen for them because they would be creating them.
But you know what also, too, even when, we look at someone who has addictions or someone who performs an act that we think is, that's not good, like murder or something or stealing or whatever, I always say that there are these people that have a different mission, and we are not here to judge. We are here to see, observe, and then in watching their experiences, maybe our lesson is to learn to be more compassionate, to be more unconditionally experiencing our own life, or to just see, and that's it. Because we can't have a life, if you think of the yin and the yang circle, it can't all be white. It can't be. There has to be these variant degrees along a paradigm. Even when you think about quantum physics or the radiation of light, there are all of these colors from dark to light. It all has to be there as part of one. So who are we to be judging, right?
We are not, and in fact, I believe that this level and all levels are perfectly perfect right now. And these people that are doing heinous things like murder or other things like that, they need that level of vibration to wake up their inner bodies. And it looks terrible, but no soul or spirit has ever been maimed or hurt or killed. It's a show. And it's up to us to learn from this show and see that it was all for our benefit and was perfect.
Yeah. Sometimes when patients would come to me, they would say, oh, gosh, my doctor can't help me anymore, and I have this terrible diagnosis. And they're all in this lower vibration, they're really stuck in that. And, oh, you're going to save me. And I'm like, awesome. I'm so glad you have that diagnosis. It's so awesome. And they're like, okay, this woman's crazy. How fast can I get out of here? And then some patients will turn around and say, what do you mean? And I'll say, because your whole life you have been seeking this moment. Now what would you like to do? And if we could look at everything that happens in our life with that same set of glasses, might we have a different version going forward? I think for many patients it has stopped them in their tracks. For some, it has had them turn around and reverse and go back the other way. It has others who have said, I'm checking out. I'm not ready for this lesson. Others will say, take me through the fire. I'm ready. What kind of coals do we need? So there are varying different degrees, again, around that circle of how we will exist. So is not everything that occurs have varying degrees how you or I, even as souls or spirits, see things from different window or vantage point, but also to those who are stuck are also looking for that same window.
That is true. And I think if one aligns themselves with God in their own way and is doing their devotions and study, that they find out that their inner self has brought everything to their life for their own good. And it doesn't look like that sometimes, but it definitely is true. Our inner self and power looks out for us like a mother looks after her baby.
Yeah, because I think also, too, Mark, people talk about possessions. You share in your book about that, my possessions. And families, mothers will say it is my child, and she will carry that badge of honor on her wetsuit. And I'll say, no, you kind of brought forth a spirit into the world, and everybody is separate unto their own. I think when we start pulling up people's tether lines, my house, my car, my possessions, my family, my spouse, my children, then we start giving away our power, and we end up in, do you remember those little balls that there used to be around in the 70s, and you'd roll them on the ground and everything would stick on them,
Yes.
And those little balls, when you start getting all these possessions, if you think about the ball inside, it can't see outside of itself to shine its light. It's stuck with all of these things on the outside of it. So maybe what we're talking about is when people hit the wall, it's when you're looking at who am I or what am I, that's when you need to say, I can't see myself, my God self, my spirit self or my soul self from this inside. I've got too much crap stuck on the outside of me. And then the shedding process begins. Maybe?
Yes, and you might as well throw that ball up in the air and hit it with a bat as far as away as you can. If you do go inside and you stay close to God, you'll see that you aren't even that mind and ego that you've been thinking with, that you are that deeper self, that intuition, that conscience, that feeling of yourself deep inside. And if one begins to identify with that, they can take control of their mind and subjugate their mind and make it spiritually minded, something that before was worldly minded or carnally minded.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what, too, Mark? Let's talk about your book. On the first page, it says, Home Sweet Home. Goodness gracious. How many of us have all said on this spiritual journey, I want to go home, 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 right? Haven't you said that?
Yes, many times. And depending where you think home is, of course. And a real home, of course, is where we go between lifetimes.
Yeah. I think sometimes we think of our physical home, or it could be anywhere, and we could just feel home inside, which we need that comfort, or it could feel like home. We could feel like we're just sitting in God's light at the moment, even for a split second. So there are many versions of what home is all about, but I think home is coming to ourself in part of God's tapestry. Might that be a picture we're looking for?
I think it is, and it is possible to find that picture if you start giving it your attention. If you don't, you're going to be confused by your own mind and desires and emotions, and it's time to be still and invite God and its power into yourself, and it will start straightening you out and your viewpoints. You will come to see that your old way of thinking was false and was asking for pity from others and just was not true at all.
Yeah. But I think also, too, I really do want to put this clarification on what we're talking about today, is that everything, if you're experiencing, is that we're saying, oh, well, that's not what it is. It's absolutely perfect and great that you are having that, because you are in awareness, and that's important, too. I had written down the other...
I think you're dead right.
Yeah, I had written down the other day, Mark, I wrote, silence is not devoid of anything. Silence is quieting the conjuring mind and allowing the universe to be heard. And don't you think
that is so beautiful? That is so beautiful. The scriptures say in the Psalms, be still and know that I am God. Mm-hmm. And Jesus says in Mark 4:39, peace, be still. Mm-hmm. And just like you said, Dr. Jeanette, if one can be still, they have opened themselves up to the power of God, and they've given themselves a chance to connect with it. And when we're still is when God can speak. When we're thinking with our mind, we cannot pick it up. If we can learn to relax and contemplate and reflect and ruminate and examine, God will speak to us and change our life.
right? Because that really takes on the idea of, you share in your book, too, about out-of-body experiences, coming outside of yourself, realizing yourself as soul and spirit, and not just a human vehicle. I've shared over the decade on this show that I truly believe, people will say, who are you? And I kind of stand there, and it's really weird. I don't have an answer. I can never answer that. I don't know what you're looking for. But I always see myself as a ball of glitter. That's it. And it's inside of me. And I say that a ball of glitter is my soul spirit essence that has been around for eons. And when we think about this lifetime, it's kind of like the ball of glitter was on a trajectory, and it impacted with an ancestral lineage. Your mother, your father, where you grew up, where they grew up, blah, 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 that story. And what happens when you intersect is that you're just like an avatar. You're standing there, and all of a sudden there's this Rolodex in your head that starts downloading that ancestral information. And that's what gives you what I call your human wetsuit. So you stepped into this wetsuit, and your experiences in life almost become all of these badges on your wetsuit. Your education, who you are, mother, father, brother, sister, teacher, pain, disease, whatever it might be. And you end up going through life with this wetsuit, and you think the more badges you get, the better you are, because you're going to leave that wetsuit as your legacy. That is the human story. And I think when we see that as the human story, we say, oh, dear, that's not pretty much what or who I really believe I am. And you start shedding those badges off of your wetsuit. And, I can distinctly remember, Mark, one time, someone had said to me, well, there's cracks. You must have little cracks in you so that God's light can shine in. And I'm going, honey, oh, no. There's cracks in my wetsuit, and my white light is shining out. Did you see it? So I think the idea is, what are we operating from? The outside or the inside? You and I are operating from the inside because our white light shines through. Many are still stuck in the paradigm of that wetsuit and being from the outside, and they can't seem to know that they have a light. Perhaps?
That's so true. You have to take off that wetsuit to go inside and find out who you are. And you find out that you are that glitter ball of white light. And that's your real identity. And that wetsuit you were wearing is just conditioning and experiences of the mind and is really no more you than your automobile.
Right. Because I always call the body the human vehicle. It's the vehicle.
Yes.
The human body is the vehicle by which your soul and spirit was given to have this human experience. In other words, you need a car to ride around to be able to get to places, So your soul and spirit chose this human vehicle. But I think sometimes people come and they say, my body, it, I am, I have to fix it, I have to this, that, or the other. And if we can, just as you share, about out of body, when you can step out and say, what does my body need? What is it trying to tell me? I'm going to step out of it for a minute and look at it from a different perspective and see something different. I had a guest on the show a while back, and we were talking about this author had polio, and we were talking about the word deformity. And the person kept trying their whole lifetime to be able to be seen. And I said, you're trying to be seen by those who cannot see. Do you understand that? Because
this is right.
What you're trying to show them is that you are more than your human vehicle. And they could not see that. Right?
Jesus called those people dead and said, let the dead bury the dead. They've cut themselves off from that inner self, and they cannot see. This is why Jesus spoke in parables. He said they couldn't see, they couldn't hear, they couldn't perceive. And this is so true. If these people were to go inside they'd see that their identity was soul and spirit and their divine self. This is really what salvation is, to realize who you are. And in the East, of course, they call this self-realization, realizing who your real self is.
But then also, too, self-realization is kind of in a little bit still separation, because we are all part of the God realization. You know, the whole idea that we are all part of God as a whole. We are just, fragments. I always call it, we're all sparkles and little pieces of glitter in the universe or the cosmos. I always think of everything as quantum physics, When someone says to me, "Who are you?" I'll say, "Oh, I'm just a quark in the universe." You know what I mean? And they're going like, "Oh, my gosh, we're going to check this one in today," But, if we could see ourselves as so diverse and unique, instead of trying to be like and being perfect like everybody believes, what then? What happens to our identity that people say is the purpose of life? To attain an identity, to attain things, to be held up on a pedestal. What happens to that then when people see that start to crumble?
Well, they panic. But
yeah.
If they go inside, they can turn that around. This power that we call Christ is an infinite fire in all directions, infinitely, of love, wisdom, power, and freedom, and we are one little spark of that fire.
Yeah.
I that makes us Christ, by the way, since nothing that exists is not Christ, since Christ created everything out of itself. In Colossians 1:27, Paul says that the saints have manifested the secret of the ages that was hid from generations since the foundation of the world. And he says the secret is that Christ is in you. Well, if you go inside and Christ is in you, who do you think you're going to eventually meet?
Right. Or do you not also, too, believe that you are that Christ light being shining out, and that you are merely just a piece of the puzzle of a mission? I think then you see your life as a mission versus a conquest. Do you know what I mean? I wrote on the piece of the paper. You had a chapter in God's image, and you said, "Is that the human being is a microcosm of the macrocosm?" And I wrote, "If life is an illusion of our own perception, are we not all creating our own photo clip?" In other words, if we could see that we are truly like this on a mission, understand that everything that's going on around us is just merely part of a movie. It's just a chapter in a book. It's just a bunch of alphabet letters stuck together. And we don't take it on, but we take it on as though it's us, it's ours, it's what, blah, blah, blah. And it's no matter what happens, keep coming back to, I'm a ball of glitter. This is an experience. I am on a mission to shine light. That's
right. And missions can really differ. They can be big missions where you're helping the whole planet, or it could be a small mission where you're raising a child or working at a job. But I think you're exactly right, Dr. Jeanette. Everything is a mission, and our inner self knows exactly what that mission is.
Right, because sometimes you wrote in your chapter 2, interrupted discussion, this is completely lost perspective. Sometimes people will say, but, I must have taken the wrong road. I went the wrong way. And I'll say there is no road and there is no wrong way.
That's right.
It doesn't exist. I don't understand that. Or I made a bad choice. I'm a bad person, and that whole idea of Christian penance, you know what I mean? God's going to slap my hand, and he says, I have to do this. I have to obey. And when they get stuck in that they feel that that's the way in which they're operating from. But if you're operating from the soul of God's light, there aren't any choices, roads, bad, good, that, the other, and their penance. You're just in that space, devoid of everything else, right?
That's right, and you can sit back, relax, and watch it like a movie, if you so choose, without being disturbed in the least. Seeing that everything, as you mentioned, is a perfect piece of some gigantic jigsaw puzzle, and that when the puzzle is done, you'll be with God.
Yes, absolutely. You know what I also think of it too? Sometimes people will say that I kind of understand, but I don't. And I liken it to, well, think about space junk, There's a lot of space junk in the universe these days, A lot of stuff that people have put up there that kind of doesn't need to be there, or planets that broke apart or whatever. I also liken that too as if you are in the ethers, you're encountering the same thing that we are as humans. There's stuff out there, and you're kind of just watching it go by. The difference is that you don't collect it and become this planet of space junk. So, in essence, we understand that if we are all energy, we can attract things to us. We could say, oh, I saw that one go by. I'm going to let that go by. I'm going to dodge this one. I'm going to go stick on that piece of space junk and see where it's going to go. I want to go see if it goes over there by that planet. That might be the bridge that will take me to my next adventure. So sometimes as humans, we say, oh, I got in a wreck, and we say, oh, okay, I didn't know how to fix a car. I didn't know how to get a lawyer. I didn't know that I'd have to, quote, stand up for myself. I didn't know that I had a voice. I didn't know that I could forgive deep inside. Maybe that accident brought me to the point of self-forgiveness. Had nothing to do with all the story. It just brought me to where I needed to be. Maybe.
That's correct, and it's called an enlightened viewpoint, where you are seeing the truth of it, that the experience was very positive and learning affirmed instead of something tragic. Not only that, you created that experience, because it is definitely true we're going to reap what we sowed. Even though we may be forgiven, we're still going to reap what we sowed, and those are going to be the very things that teach us life's lessons.
Yeah. Also, too, you share in your book, Mark, it says, it is true that all spiritual efforts are rewarded and that every sincere appeal to God is answered. That's a perfect example is that, oh my gosh, I can't get sick. I have to do this, that, or the other. Or I really want my child to be well and perfect and saved and make it, so I could see my grandchildren. And then people turn around and say, but what I asked God for, I didn't get. I didn't get it. And I think sometimes we project out this picture, a human story. We expect it to show up, and anything less than that, we say, is a negative connotation. God didn't hear me. He must have been on sabbatical. I'm not good enough. We aren't good enough. We have to do something to get back on the road. We must be on the wrong track, whatever. Or God can't hear me. I must need to go to church more and pray more rosaries or whatever. Or maybe I need to change my words in my meditation because I'm not right. When in essence, if we stop and listen, the answer might be that this wasn't really meant for you. We already got what we needed, and what we got and what we needed was unconditional love. So if we're already unconditional love, that human story has no connotation to tether to us. So an example is like when a child might die early. And people will say, oh, but I never got to see them do this. I never got to be a grandmother. I never got to whatever. And I look back and say, your child was here for a short time to teach you unconditional love. Can you hold that? And then they understand.
This is so true.
And then they understand
this is so
that.
True.
all that other stuff was just the human dogma. Just as much as different religions have their dogma, so does the human have a dogma that we keep repeating and expecting to be. Right?
That's correct. And one is kind of either complaining or thanking God. And if you're looking at it with the correct viewpoint, as you just gave a good example of, you thank God for everything, that you got to experience that child for 3 months or 5 years. Mm-hmm. And furthermore, you back off and don't necessarily look at that child as yours. It was a fully developed soul and spirit that came in. And by the way, who were your children last lifetime and the lifetime before that? And don't you realize that next lifetime you're going to be in ignorance of who your children were this lifetime? And you can look at that big picture and see that these souls are all growing, and all of the experiences you had with them were wonderful.
Yes. I think sometimes if we say, sometimes when another soul, when you meet somebody, you say, oh, I really have a sense I know them from somewhere. I've had that my entire lifetime. Everything has been placed in places, and I just need to seek them out. And when I seek them out, I know that's what I'm supposed to be. I can remember someone that I met, and I said, oh, family. And then I said, oh, that's what we're supposed to do. And I saw another, oh, that's where you're taking me. And my awesome moments in my life are in the millions, but I think that's just because I had been in that state of awareness. For those who are just now coming into that, I say, step back and say the word awesome to everything. And then see what triggers in your mind as the next thought without you concretely creating it. Just let it flow and see what happens. And eventually, as you start doing that, other thoughts open up. And you kind of, like if you fall down and scuff your knee, you're not crying going to have someone fix it or crying because you need comfort. You say, oof, awesome. And all of a sudden, you're just standing there. You aren't moving. You aren't feeling. You aren't noticing. Nothing's happening. And you go, oh, okay. And then maybe you might go on and do something else. So those old patterns and habits start to dissolve. They don't show up anymore, right?
I think this is true. And as you give more and more attention to the correct point of view, to God, to your devotions and study, these old ways of thinking just start dropping away without even trying to do it. And when you connect with that power, hopefully on a daily basis, it will do this for you. It's a wonderful secret, and it makes the spiritual life so much easier because you realize that your soul and spirit, who you really are concocting all of this. It's all in place, it's all perfect, and it's all glorious. If you can grab that viewpoint like you've just exemplified, you're on your way to total fulfillment because that power will do it for you if you let it and stay connected.
Let's talk, Mark, about the chapter, All is Provided. I think this is so very important. I have a wonderful story about this because I pretty much have been food challenged my entire life, and survival has definitely been a picture in my entire life. But I didn't take it as, my daughter had said to me at one time, she says, man, someone had said to me the other day that I didn't realize you were poor. And we turned around and said, what do you mean? What does that mean? What does poor mean? We didn't understand that because we had been living a life where we were just going along and being guided. We knew where we were going to be. We knew we were going to be doing, and we just followed along. Did poor mean that we didn't have steak every single day of the week? Did poor mean that we had more than 2 pairs of shoes? Did poor mean that, we didn't have 2 cars in the driveway or private school? We don't even recognize that because that was the human story. Yes, I mean, I was great at cooking rice 100 million different ways. You know what I mean? Or my kids, we walked a lot. Or, I raised the 4 kids, and, each kid would have a certain thing. Or, if you're getting taller, well, maybe we need to take down the hems of the pants instead of buying new pants. So I think that all was provided, and I never really thought anything different. Yet others...
Well, that's a wonderful place to be, and I couldn't agree with you more. And I think, Dr. Jeanette, that you and I are among the richest people in the universe.
Right. Yes,
we are so rich, it cannot be qualified or quantified.
But you know what I'm also thinking, too, Mark, is that people were using outside things to fill them up inside when you and I were operating from the inside already, and we had nothing to fill.
That's right. That's exactly right. And the difference is A from Z. If one wants fulfillment and to be happy, you have to look at things from the inside, because we know that life down here can be kind of bumpy. And we want the correct suspension to make those bumps as pleasant as possible.
Yeah, I think that once you start freeing yourself up, you're letting go of identities, letting go of your possessions and stuff, you say, what am I feeling inside? And when you start to feel the inside, there are less and less of needs. You don't need to have 100 friends. You don't need to have all of these cars or all of these possessions in your closet. Or
those things are actually tying one down. They really are. We have energy in them, and they keep us imprisoned on earth and to this outer point of view. And Dr. Jeanette, you've hit right on a central theme there. Let go of those things. They're really not yours to begin with. You might be renting them or leasing them for a little bit, but they have really nothing to do with you. If you can go inside, like you just mentioned, and look at things from that viewpoint is soul, and that's who we really are. And we are extremely overjoyed constantly from that viewpoint. All we have to do is join it. We don't even have to become it, because it's already a reality inside. The ugly duckling did not have to become a swan. It had to realize it was a swan.
Yes. Yep. Mark, I think that in closing, what you and I share today is our view from a God realization world, from the inside out, how we live, how we shine, how we radiate, and how to be able to experience what I call the new earth while we're still breathing in this space and time. Isn't that what our teachings are here to do as we share our own experiences?
I think it is, and we want to help people access that. And my advice would be to get close to God every day in your own way, hopefully multiple times, and you will start to see from the inside. And it will be revolutionary. And you will find not happiness, total fulfillment.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, and my recommendation, I love the word awesome. And I think how many times you can spread that thing around, and don't even have an opinion of what's right or wrong of yourself or others, or what's showing up in front of you, and be able to say, I'm open to receiving grace, and see what shows up.
Yes. That viewpoint is above good and bad, yin and yang, night and day. It transcends it and sees both sides as God.
Yep. Absolutely, Mark, because it took us back as we go full circle to what we started out with the show. We were talking about going 360 of right and wrong. So I think that we've had a great job today as we dance in the ethers, don't you think?
Oh, we've had the most fun that there can be. I've never had such fun as talking about God and the inner life.
Absolutely. I love to do this show. Like I said, I've been doing it for almost 12 years now. And it kind of is my time to join together with those and to be able to share with our listeners little points of inspiration that maybe they don't hear in their everyday, because they've got a tribe around them that's kind of stuck in their beliefs and their truths. So I'm glad that I had you on the show today to be able to dance in the ethers, because when we are out here in this space and time, we are really free to be able to share those things that you and I, some people might say, "Ooh, it's crazy, I don't want to hear it." But maybe you say, but I've already experienced it, and now I too can share. So aren't we giving others and our listeners their wings to be able to share their own stories?
Yes, and we're giving them the wind to uplift those wings. If they could see just for a moment how much God and that power inside them loves them, they would fall on their knees and cry for days.
Yes, absolutely. And it's such a powerful place to be. When you stand in light, and you go back on your experiences in your life and say, I remember that time, and you just hold your breath, you can really feel your body almost quivering, I think, sometimes with the feelings inside. When people say, my heart is broken, I have grief and loss, I'll say, oh no, honey, your heart is broken because all that unconditional love you've had inside just had to be released. Can you let it go?
It's a difficult thing to let it go, but with God's help, one can. With God's help, one can do anything and can assume this type of life we've been talking about. I would encourage everyone, no matter what their religion or belief, to daily connect with God and let God do this to you, because without that, we are unable to.
Yes. I started my day just before the show, Mark. Something said, pick up your phone, and I heard the ducks outside, So I picked up my phone, I went outside, and a little mother duck with like 4 little babies behind it was going down the little canal, right in front of my door, and I just clicked a picture of them going along. And I said, oh, joy. That's my purpose for today, joy. So thank you so much for sharing today in that moment of joy with us.
Oh, I've had so much fun, Dr. Jeanette, to talk to a fellow soul that understands. And I thank you for inviting me. And I look forward to our fellowship in the future, whether it's here in this life or in a future life or someplace in the heavenly plains. Thank you, Dr. Jeanette.
Absolutely. We meet in the ethers. We're all quantum sparkles. That's how I like to think about it. On my desk, I've got a little bottle of glitter, and that reminds me every day what my home is all about.
It's a wonderful way to do it, and it's a wonderful thing to remember.
Yes. Mark, can you share with the listeners how to find out more information about your work, where your book might be available, and if you have a website?
Well, I did have a website, but nobody visited it, so I let it slide. But anybody that wishes to communicate with me can email me directly at markneslow.com. Neslow is Olsen backwards, so it goes Mark, O-L-S-E-N, @gmail.com. And I'd be delighted to communicate with anybody that wanted to.
And is your book available on Amazon?
My book is available on Amazon, yes, and other booksellers. You can either go to Amazon or you can just Google it, and you will find multiple places to buy it. I'm also writing a second book on the Christian view of salvation, and that might be out in a year or so.
Very good. Well, Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure to have you.
It was a pleasure to be on your show, Dr. Jeanette, and I wish you the best in the future, which I know you will grab.
Oh, and you as well, Mark, and you as well. If you'd like to find out more information about Mark Olsen, again, the book is The Layman's Guide to Experiences in God Realization. Please do click on the link on the bottom of today's show page to go directly to Amazon to be able to find out more information about his book. And hopefully we'll have Mark back on, God willing, and he will be able to talk to us about his second book. But it truly is about being able to say, step into something different. Say it's awesome with everything that comes along. Spend time with God, even if it's only 5 seconds or 2 minutes or maybe an hour, whatever you need. But be able to say, there is something more to this life, and I'm going to connect to it. There's a reason I'm here. How did I get here? What is it all about? But I just want to sit still and let the human chatter go on the other side, and I'm going to sit in silence for a moment. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher, and until tomorrow, have a great day.
Today we discussed many life-changing concepts. Who do you turn to, and how do you know what is best when faced with a health crisis? Dr. Jeanette is a patient advocate. She listens to the patient, the doctors, and the family, clarifies the health issues and concerns, then helps the patient make the best choices going forward. If you would like help implementing change into your life and health, we can talk and see where you are stuck and how to improve the quality of your life. Check the link on the bottom of today's show page or visit dr.jeanette-gallagher.com to schedule a phone appointment today.